So I held a mini hackathon here in Albany, New York, for using the LLM command line tool. This is a tool created by Simon Willison, and you you can find the link to this demo notebook underneath the video. And inside that demo notebook, under the video, I also will put a link to LLM directly so that you can go check out the LLM website. That's a really cool tool. First, I'm going to talk about setup. I highly recommend if you're not already using UV for managing your Python versions and Python dependencies, just do it. Just go install UV. You'll never have to install Python again because UV manages all your Python versions. It manages all your Python dependencies. It gets you out of Python dependency hell forever. Um, go install UV. That's the first step here. And then one reason you want to install UV is because in order to install Python tools for global use across your system, traditionally you would have to install that into your system Python version, and you can end up breaking your system Python version that way. One really nice thing about UV is that it has this UV tool install command that you can use to install a command line tool inside a managed UV managed environment that's just specifically for that tool. So that tool is in its own isolated environment and won't affect your Python install. So just run this UV tool install LLM, and that will install the LLM tool on your system to get you started. Then LLM has extensions. Depending which models you want to use, you might want to install the extensions for different providers. By default, it's got all the OpenAI models listed, but if you want like Anthropic models, you install LLM-Anthropic, DeepSeek, Gemini, OpenRouter. I highly recommend the OpenRouter extension, and one reason for that is that OpenRouter has a bunch of like really powerful models that you can use for free, and I'll show you that in just a minute here. But basically, LLM install and then the names of the plugins that you want. So LLM-OpenRouter would get you the OpenRouter extension. And then whatever API key, or sorry, whatever providers you want to use, you have to set the API keys for those. So you would need to go and get an OpenAI or OpenRouter account. You would need to get an API key, and then you would need to run this LLM keys set, and then the name of the provider. So for OpenRouter, it would be OpenRouter, LLM keys set OpenRouter. You'll see a prompt, and that prompt will have, it will ask you for your API key, and you will simply paste your API key in at the prompt. And it will be invisible when you paste it in. That's that's on purpose because we don't want somebody like looking over your shoulder and seeing your API key. So just a lot of interfaces in the terminal here will uh, hide your API key when you type it in. That's fine. Don't worry about that. But just paste your API key in and hit enter. All right, for the purposes of the hackathon, one reason that I recommended everybody use OpenRouter is because it has free models. So once you've set your, once you've installed the plugins and you've set your API keys, you will be able to run the LLM models command and get a list of models. And I'll just show you what that looks like. So we'll run LLM models. All right, we can see DeepSeek models here. Um, the DeepSeek Reasoner is a pretty good model, though it takes a long time to run because it has to think about things before it runs. We also have a bunch of Gemini, Google Gemini models. The OpenAI models are up at the top. And then we have these OpenRouter models. And you can see the ones that are free have this little colon free at the end of the model name. Right now, I highly recommend using this one. It's called Cipher Alpha, and what this is it's a forget what they call it, like a ghost model. It's a preview model that we don't know which company it comes from. And they're sort of like anonymizing the model for purposes of testing it out on OpenRouter. And so right now, while it's in preview, it's free to use, but it's apparently like a very powerful model and probably by one of the big top AI labs. And it has a million token context length, so it can take very, very long inputs. So go ahead and use that for free while it's available. Why not? A lot of the other free models here are, fairly um, small models, but you can find a few in here. There's DeepSeek R1, I think, is free. And there's some Quen models that are free. There's some NVIDIA models that are free. So you just sort of like scroll through that list and see what you can find that says free on it and use one of the free models. That's a really fun way to get started here. So then once you pick a model that you want to use, you can set an alias for it because this is obviously a lot to type, the whole model name. So we want to set a shorter model name so that we can specify the model name. So we'll type LLM aliases set, and then we'll type the short model name and then the full model name. And that will set an alias so that we can come back later and use that model. I'm not sure why my thing just re-rendered, but anyway, we're right here. So, and then once you have set your alias, then you should be able to use the short name with this -m flag in order to pick the model. So I'll just copy and paste this down here and show you how that works. It will make a request to that model. And according to that model, there are 4 R's in strawberry, which is not correct. But of course, this is the classic problem that AI models have a very hard time counting the R's in strawberry. So proceeding. Um, Here are some ways that I am currently using this command line tool in my daily work. So one way is I'm using Linux inside of WSL2, which is the Windows subsystem for Linux. So I have a Windows install on my computer, and then I have a separate Linux install on my computer that is managed by Windows. And whenever I'm in Linux, because I grew up using Windows, I'm not like super familiar with Linux, and so sometimes I need a little bit of help with Linux command line tools and how to do things in Linux. And so I have set an LLM template that is for like getting help with Linux. So this dash save and then the template name means that we're going to save this prompt as a template, you know, a reusable prompt basically. So we're going to set a system prompt for the template. And my system prompt says you are a Linux command line copilot running in WSL2 with the following Linux distribution. And then I've used this little variable syntax here to output my Linux distribution information into this system prompt. So then I do the --save Linux, and when I run this command, it saves this as a template. Okay, I'll just do that right now. And we save that as a template. And now I can use it with this template option. All right, so I add --template Linux to any prompt, and that will basically we'll have a system message that'll be this, and then there will be a user message, which is whatever I type in when I call that the template command. Okay, so if I type, how could I split a PDF by page range with my Linux template, it will spit out an answer to split a PDF by page range on Ubuntu, which is my Linux distribution. You can use these tools. All right, so it's got my system prompt that tells it that I'm on Ubuntu, and then it's got my user prompt about splitting a PDF. And so that the templates are quite useful if you have repeat use cases that you keep coming back to. Another thing that I do is whole repository question and answering. So there's this tool called Repomix, which is an incredible tool. And if you use LLMs much at all, you should be using Repomix. Basically, what Repomix does is it'll take your entire repository, with the exception of whatever you have ignored by Git. So it'll exclude your virtual environments, it'll exclude your .env files. Um, but as long as a file is like in version control tracking, Repomix will include that file. Um, you install it with Node. So if you've got npm, if you've got Node installed on your machine, you should be able to install this with npm install. And you use the global flag and then Repomix. And then you can run the Repomix command anywhere you want. So for my current directory, I'll show you what this looks like. All right, so I simply run Repomix, and that will pack my repository. So it says it's found 7 files, gives me the total character and token counts so that I can see how many tokens I'm burning when I send this to the LLM, right? And then I can attach that file that was generated. So it generates a repomix dash. I'll actually show you what the file looks like. So we'll open it with cursor, repomix dash output dot XML is the file name. And it looks like this. This file is a merged representation of the entire code base combined into a single document by Repomix. Okay, it has like the purpose section. It's got these little XML tags to sort of explain to the LLM what we're looking at. All right, so it's got a file summary section, and it kind of like will give you the organization, how everything's organized. It's got a map of the directory structure, and then it has the files, and each file has the path of the file attached to the top of the file, and then it's got the text of the file. So that's a pretty useful thing to have to be able to pack your entire repository in a very LLM friendly format is super useful and something that I use all the time. And then to attach this to an LLM prompt, you use this dash F flag, and this stands for a fragment. And you can use more than one of these. So let's say you also wanted to attach a README along with this repomix output file. You would just do two of these. You would do dash F repomix output.xml and then also dash F readme.md, right? So you can you can do as many files as you want. But right now I'll just run this. Actually, so what I'll do, you can some of the cool things you can do with Repomix, you can use this include flag to give it file patterns, and it'll only include the things that match the patterns you want. So this would only include bash scripts or README files. That's all that will be included in the packed repository, even if we have a whole bunch of other flags or a whole bunch of other files in this repository. And then we have the remote flag, and this actually will hack a repository from GitHub, and you don't even have to, go out and manually download the thing from GitHub. It'll just do all of that automatically and then clean up when it's done. And so that's a super cool thing too, that you can like pack a remote repository. So I'll just go ahead and run this actually, and we'll pack that awesome hooks repository. And then I will show you how we can run this command to send the Repomix output to our LLM. It's by default, it's GPT-4o. So this is sending to an OpenAI model. And I asked it what awesome hooks are currently available, and it says that it's got these two hooks in the repository, the remote repository that we just packed. So you can get like I often, if there's a third-party library that doesn't have good documentation, I often will just like pack the repository with Repomix and say to the LLM like, hey, here's this third-party library that I want to use, and I don't know how to use this function. Like, tell me how I'm supposed to use this function or whatever. Whatever my question is, I can get answers based on the code, um, and that will fill the gap for missing documentation. So super useful tool that I use all the time. Another thing that I do with this Repomix output file is I will have multiple models write step-by-step implementation plans for new features. So I send it the file. This is another way to, you know, cat, you can cat the contents of a file and it will attach it as a fragment to LLM. Um, and then you can tell it, write a step-by-step implementation plan to add a user profile page, and you can redirect that output to a file. So this will append the output from DeepSeek to the plans.md document, and I can run this command several times, and maybe I use a different model every time, and now I've got 4 implementation plans in this plans.md document, and I can go through that document and compare the different plans and use the one that I like the most. Or I can merge bits and pieces of different plans. I could have another model look at all 4 plans and merge them. So lots of things that you can do here with this tool. Uh, I use it. I just discovered this use case this week. If you run git log, there's a since flag where you can, give me all the commit messages since such and such a date. So I needed to do reporting since May 8th because that was the last time that I had updated my client about some work that I was doing. So I did since 2025 05 08, and that gave me all of the git log commit messages, the git log entries for commits that I had made since then. And then I pipe that output to LLM. This is called the pipe operator. It basically means like, let's take this command's output and then send that to this command and make this output the input for the next command, right? So then I asked LLM in Visual Markdown, prepare a timeline of development during this period, including stages of work and milestones. And so it's going to look at the git log output and it's going to create a nicely formatted timeline that sort of like groups the commits together by theme, thematically, and also by date range, and give me like, here's sort of several stages of development that happened um, during that period. So super useful, and makes reporting to your clients really fast. And I'm sure there's lots of different variations that you could do on this. Um, the fourth way that I'm using LLM in my daily work is data extraction with structured outputs. So you can use this schema flag to ask for JSON output, and you can give it a JSON schema. You can say, okay, the keys are going to be this, this, and this, and the data types are this, this, and this, and it'll return a JSON object that matches your schema. And you can give it a JSON file with a formal JSON schema, or you can use this like abbreviated syntax. So you would just do schema and then, okay, we've got a key named followers, which is going to be an int. We've got a following, which is going to be an int, and we've got text stack, which is string. So what I'm doing here is I've got my GitHub profile page. Okay. So I'm giving the curl command, the link to my GitHub profile page, and saying, hey, go get my GitHub profile page and send the output to standout. Okay. To standard output. So it basically would print in the terminal, except it's not going to print in the terminal because instead of printing it in the terminal, we're sending standard output with this pipe operator to strip tags. And you can find inside my notebook, you can find the strip tags repository, which is also created by Simon Willison, the creator of LLM. So he's created all sorts of useful things. Strip tags is going to remove all the HTML tags and all the blank lines from the HTML. So it'll just leave the plain text of the page, which makes it like way more concise and way more LLM friendly to extract the information from that page. So we're getting the HTML, we're sending it to strip tags. Now we've got plain text, and we're sending the plain text to LLM. And we're telling LLM this is the schema we want uh, to extract the data from the web page in. And LLM, we could add a prompt here, but actually LLM is like smart enough to recognize how to extract the information to match the schema. So we just send it even without a prompt. We're just going to send the web page content. and it will extract, okay, Christopher has, this many followers, that's an integer, and this he's following this many people, that's also an integer, and then his tech stack, will sort of like read the profile and return a string that describes the tech stack. So then if you wanted, you could loop over a whole bunch of different profile pages and repeat this command and get an array of, different GitHub users, like how many followers do they have, how many people are they following, what is their tech stack. So it'd be an interesting way. I mean, like if you wanted to, you could even look at the list of people that are that they're following or who are following them, and you could create a social network graph of GitHub users, right? And now you're starting to understand the landscape of developers. So, um, like once you get that structured data, there's all kinds of things that you can do with it. And I think like combining LLM with curl is a really cool use case because now you can extract structured data from web pages very easily. Okay, so as mentioned when I started this presentation, I put together a hackathon here locally just for local developers, suburban devs near Albany, New York, to come build projects. And I gave them only an hour. So the premise of the hackathon was that we're going to just come up with like cool use cases for LLM and see what we can do in an hour. And here is some of the suggestions, things that I personally have not explored yet, but that I think would be interesting use cases for LLM. So one is it supports tool use. So you can give it a Python function and have it call the Python function with arbitrary arguments. You give it instructions on like what you want to accomplish, and it will generate a function call, run that function for you in order to accomplish some work, let's say on your computer or maybe on the internet. All kinds of possibilities here, and I don't even like if you have a cool Python function, try giving it a Python function and see what it can do. Um, Another thing is you can embed files and then run similarity search. So I actually like usually if you're going to run vector search, it's quite a complicated process to embed stuff and then to run a similarity search. Um, and it's always been a little bit intimidating for me, but here you can do it with just two commands. So you can do LLM embed to embed a chunk of text, and then LLM similar in order to perform semantic search. And if you don't know what semantic search is, basically the idea is we're going to do fuzzy search. So like I might have a bunch of chunks of text, paragraphs, say from a document, and I want to know if there's anything in the document about the President of the United States. Well, maybe like the paragraphs don't use the word president, but maybe they have something about Donald Trump, right? So a keyword search would fail to find that. But with semantic search, it's comparing the meaning of my string with the meaning of the embedded chunks of text. And so it's going to be doing like fuzzy search and it's going to be able to recognize, okay, this paragraph about Donald Trump is very similar to your prompt about the president. And so, though, we're going to return the paragraph about Donald Trump. So this is one of the amazing things that has come out of modern AI research is that we can do this fuzzy searching over text based on meaning and not on keywords. And with LLM, you can do that very easily with just two commands. So, you know, uh, that's a cool thing to experiment with. You can chat with a local model. So if you host a model with llama.cpp, you then can use the LLM tool to chat with that model. You can add captions to your photos. So there's this little attachment flag. So dash A lets you add an attachment. And vision models can do images. There's also some of the Gemini models can take audio files, they can take video files. So, all kinds of attachments, and you can add more than one attachment. So like I could do four different images and ask it to like compare the images. Let's say I've developed a web component and I want to see like which one is the most visually attractive. And now I can send all four images, screenshots of all four web components to an LLM, and I can say, like rate these from most to least beautiful, and do that. So um, that's a cool use case, I think, is attach files and ask questions about the images. One idea I had here is you could take LLM to your photo library on your computer and you could generate captions for each photo. And by chaining LLM with other commands, you could then actually like take those captions and you could add them as metadata to the photo. So now every photo has a description in its metadata. Um, and finally, I suggested that you could combine LLM with whatever, command line tool you're already using in your shell on a regular basis. Try combining it with LLM, and the odds are that you can do something even more powerful. Uh, like enhance your workflows, whatever shell workflow you're already using. If you add LLM to it, you might get surprising results and be able to do even cooler stuff with that shell command. So this was part one. This is the demo that I gave to the hackathon participants before we got started. And in part two of this video, I will walk you through the top three. Well, actually, there were there were very few of us. It's 4th of July weekend, so there were only three submissions, and so we will walk through the three submissions that we received for the hackathon. So come back in part two. I think they were all cool. I mean, like they really were. They easily could have been the top three projects, even if we had had a lot more participants. So come back and check those out in the next video.